Hey there, I'm Pascal and welcome to another Home Automator tutorial. In this series, Coding Practices, Tips and Tricks, we are looking at taking our skills to the next level by modularizing and improving our code and techniques. This is the intermediate version of my popular ESPHome Basic setup for all devices in episodic format. In this tutorial, we will finally create our first functional device with the ESP32C3 using all the tools that we have been building, and there will be some tips too. Again, thank you very much to Stephen for sending me the ESP32C3. I am thoroughly enjoying them. The card to the series is here above if you've missed any of the previous tutorials in the series. If you've seen any of my previous tutorials, welcome back. If you're new here, make sure that you do the previous tutorials first, because this is binding all of those together. I know that your time is valuable, so the tutorial has chapters which you can access on the video timeline or in the description. Before we start, I'd like to remind you that all the scripts and the discussions are on my GitHub page. The link is in the description. If you have any questions, feel free to leave it in the comments here or on the discussion forum on my GitHub page. If you like this tutorial, please like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and maybe share it. This will enable the YouTube algorithm to present this tutorial to more people. But I think it's time to start. We're going to need some software. If you've done the previous tutorials, you know and have it already, but I'll leave my tutorials to those software components here below. In short, you'll need Home Assistant, ESPHome, Studio Code add-on, or Visual Studio Code Desktop with the Samba Share add-on. Let's get into some code. Finally, we get to the MCU. And as I said, we will use the ESP32C3 Mini. But firstly, we need to go back to the specification sheets and see the vital components that we have missed from all of our modules. So the first one is the ESP32 board platform. But before that, as usual, I am going to take all of this, which is the explanation of what the file is. And I need to take that one out. Okay, and this will be the include. And here I have a note saying tested OK. I've tested obviously all of these things. I've got a brief overview of what's important to us when it comes to the board specification. So this is an ESP C3FN4 RISC-V single core processor. It has a Wi-Fi, BGA, and a Bluetooth 5 module, 4 megabytes of flash, 1 I2C, 1 I2S, 3 SPIs, 2 UARTs, 2 12-bit ADCs, 1 RGB LED, and an internal temperature sensor. The things that really concern us in this is the I2C, SPI, UART, and the internal LED and internal temperature sensor. So quickly, I'm not going to dwell on this because we've done these things before. The first part of the board is obviously to declare the ESP32 and the board. The framework is going to be Arduino, and we'll use the latest version of Arduino. Obviously, this could end up being framework ESP-IDF. I will show you one of those later. The next one is going to be the internal LED. Now, we are about to have an error, I think. Oh, no, we're not. The internal LED for this specific board is the RGB. And the RGB LED in this case is a WS2812. Now, something that I've learned recently is that the RTM channel is very, very, very important. It is sitting on 0. You could put an LED strip on channel 1, which it has, by the way. And I don't know if it's very visible, but I do have one that's running right now over there. And whilst doing that, I used an ESP32 that has an internal RGB as well. In fact, I think it was a C3. And I was wondering why I had the onboard RGB going off. And that was because they were sharing the same channel. Okay, let's move on. The next one is the I2C settings. And there they are. And as you see, I use extensively the device internal name. And this is where the default I2C is on this specific board. Next, we will do the UART. And there is the UART. This is the hardware pins assigned to the hardware UART. You can have more than one UART. I think we said we can have 2, yes. So we can have 2 UARTs on the specific board, so we could have a second one at a later stage. Right, the next one is going to be our SPI. And here is the SPI. Again, I'm not going to linger on these, but this is the hardware SPI that we're talking about right now. Lastly is our internal temperature. I think we've covered disable by default already. That means that it is not visible inside of Home Assistant by default. In fact, it's not even visible on the web server by default. There are some gotchas of doing what we're doing here, but I will show you how to disable any of these inside of the device file. So you may wonder why I've included the I2C, SPI, and UART in this module. They do use the pins, and we could use these pins for something else. However, it's important to note that different pins are designed for these purposes on various boards, and that we can disable any of these inside of the device file. And when we go into our first device, I will show you how to disable these. Coming back to standards, for my own sanity, I try to have some standardized approach to my device files, which follows a specific order. The order you will be able to see as I write it, but in short, it's the file description at the top, substitution variables, common packages in the package and section, coming first with the board specification, then with the network specification, and any onboard peripherals. I also include often in there, and you'll see that in a later tutorial, things like fonts, colors, glyphs, and then the sensor related configurations. After that, I do put the ESPHome configuration, and we'll discuss that a little later, and any custom device configuration. It may sound silly, but keeping the same organization across different devices helps me find what I'm looking for faster, and I know where to look for any pieces of code within the device files. So let's get on to that device file. In the previous tutorial, we introduced the expressive ESP32C3 development board, and we'll be using this for this part of the series. We covered the creation of the network, settings, web server, and Wi-Fi modules in the previous tutorial. And now we also have our first MCU board component. Now it's time to bring together all of it into a functional firmware. In this tutorial, we'll also be using the include directive that was discussed in the first tutorial of the series. To get started, let's create a file in the root directory named ESPHome device tutorial.yaml. While this file is just for tutorial purposes, it's a good idea to use descriptive names, as we may want to reuse this for another device in the future. The first part of the file is going to be, as usual, our comments. And you will see that here I define the components we are going to be using. So it's going to be an expressive ESP32C3 dev kit M1. And the enable hardware on it will be Wi-Fi. We will turn off the Bluetooth radio and we will activate the web server. We will add additional sensors, and that's where they will be going. There is a note here. Because the web server is active, we are going to switch off the Bluetooth radio. The following section you will already know, because this is exactly the same as it was in the first tutorial. Now we are going to go into the next part of it. And the first thing we're going to do is add some of the common packages. In this case, the packages are going to be related to the board. And earlier we created the C3 mini expressive file for the board, and in the previous tutorial we created the settings file. Now you will notice that yours truly has not put it in the right place. This would be the right place. So it is in the common core settings.yaml. If we go common core, there is settings.yaml. The next part of the common packages is the network section. And the network section has the Wi-Fi and the web server. I am going to add the Bluetooth, and I am going to say include common network, which I see is not in the others, and I'm going to use the Bluetooth off. Bluetooth off. .yaml. This will have two effects on the device. Effect number one, it will switch off the Bluetooth radio, and effect number two, it will be consuming less energy. Let me add network here, and on top, there we are. This is enough for us to compile. Now, I do want to put a little bit more information. I'm just going to put it here like this. This is the custom device configuration, which we will be using before the end of this tutorial series. And then the sensors that we want to either modify or that we want to include in here. There is one more component in here, but I'm not going to discuss it right now. In the custom device configuration area, I'm going to add the board configuration. And we will add the BME sensor at a later stage, but I want to put a comment that we are using an expressive ESP32C3. And that's pretty much all it takes to create the device configuration file or device file. Next, we are going to build the file and put it onto the ESP32C3. And before we try to deploy anything onto the C3 that you can see here, there is one important thing, and that is this cable over here. It is hooked up to my computer, and I am just going to switch it on, and you can see it is switched on. Now, it's been initiated before because I used it previously to test these tutorials, but we are going to wipe it. So let's go into the ESPHome interface and do just that. And now let's try to compile the firmware. Now, first things first, you're going to notice that the name doesn't look right. That stems from the fact that we have used an external editor to edit the file. So that will disappear in a second as soon as we've compiled it. Now, first things first, and we're going to say install, and in this case, plugged into this computer. Now, it's going to take a second or two, and you can see that the name has changed and looks right now. And we're going to go fast forward through this. And now that it has finished, we're going to first open ESPHome Web, because if we do it the other way around, you'll see when you say download project, it closes the file, although I see that they've updated and Open ESPHome Web is there as well. All right, and now we have the file downloaded. I am going to close this and I am going to close this. And as I say, now that it's compiled, the name is correct. Okay, so let's go to ESPHome Web and click here, and we should find it right here. We are going to connect, install, choose file, and it's going to be the top one. There we are, and we are going to install it. It's going to connect. It's going to erase, which is always a good thing to do, and I will fast forward through the installation. And now that the configuration is installed, I am going to close Web ESPHome, and you can see our device is online. So the next step is going to have to be, let's test it. And I'll see you there in a minute. So the first part of the testing is going to be, we're going to visit the web service, and my username is admin, and my password, well, you're not going to get that. I think that's it. Yep. And here we are. And as you can see, we've got sensors and control, and we have configuration and a few other things. The ESPHome version is there, the connected SSID, the DNS address, the IP address, the MAC time sensor in seconds, and the DB signal, the DVM signal. Okay, so this is working perfectly well. We are online, and I think we should go into some tips and tricks. With a series titled Coding Practices, Tips and Tricks, it was only a matter of time before we reached this point. And yes, we're going to go into some tips and tricks. Now, let's dive into the first tip that I want to share with you. Entity category. This feature allows us to target specific section configurations or diagnostics in both the web server and on Home Assistant. Now, if you don't know what I'm talking about, I am going to go back here, and this is the sensor and control, which basically is something that is not always there, as you will see later. But that includes all of our controls and all of our sensors. Configuration is the configuration of the device. And lastly, diagnostics. Diagnostics are things like uptime sensor and the Wi-Fi signal and the IP address, as you can see. Now, there is more than that. And if we click Show More, you will see internal temperature now appears as well. So, and I'm still, this is the state. I think I'm going to have to fix that, and I will do that off screen. Right now, what I want to do is hop into Visual Studio Code, and we are going to add entity category config to a few things. So we are going to go into the expressive.yaml. We can see in the sensor and controls that the onboard RGB LED is sitting in the sensor and controls. To me, it should be in the configuration. This is part of the board and therefore shouldn't be there at all. So we'll change it. And how we change it is very simple. We go to the internal LED, and we just add a property, and the property is entity category config. Now we have to go and recompile. And since we are here, I am going to quickly off screen fix the issue over here. And that is a status.
A few moments later.
I think that will fix it. I've added a line to the binary sensor status saying name is status. So let's go and recompile this. And I'm not going to bore you with the recompilation, and there will be a few. I'm just going to fast forward and see you on the other side.
A few moments later.
And you just saw the ESP32 flash, and that tells us that it has started. I'm going to stop it, and we are going to return here, and I'm going to refresh the page. And as you can see, now the onboard RGB LED is sitting on the configuration side of things, and I have indeed fixed status. Why limit ourselves to just one tip today? Let's explore another one. If you ever needed to hide components from the web server or disable it by default in Home Assistant, we can always enable it later, but by default it will be off. Let's revisit our settings module, and I said we would go back to these, and we will now go to the version component, which is over here, and I'm going to center it for you so that you can see it, and we're going to add disable by default is equal to true. And there we are, it's done. And again, we need to recompile to see the changes. Now you can see right now that the ESPHome version is right here. If we recompile, it should vanish, and I will show you how to access it as well. So I'll see you on the other side.
A few moments later.
And here we are ready, and I will remind you that we're looking at ESPHome version, and as you can see, we did not click show all. So we are going to refresh, and you will see that the version has now gone. It's not visible to us. However, if you click show all, here it is. You'll see it there. How does it affect Home Assistant? Let's go and have a look quickly. And we're going to go into the settings, device and services. Okay, so we're going to go into ESPHome, and you will recognize those two. We're going to add a device, and the device in question, I need the IP address, which is over here. And we're going to add it, submit, and it should add itself. I am going to skip this, and there is a C3 device tutorial. I am going to click into it, and you will notice that in nowhere you will find the version of ESPHome. However, if we go and click more, you will see that the ESPHome version and the internal temperature are available here. Same over here, the firmware is also available in the configuration. It wasn't visible earlier. Okay, so that covers 2 tips. Now, how about we make it a hat trick? And the last tip for today, you may have noticed that we have some missing icons. And let's remedy that. And this is 2 tips for the price of 1. And we can find the material design icons on a site called Pictogrammers, and I will leave the link on the GitHub page for this tutorial. What we do is, and we can go to the Wi-Fi file whilst this loads, we are going to go to the Wi-Fi file, and we know that we are missing quite a few. And for Wi-Fi, connected SSID, that would be a network one. I think I'll use the Wi-Fi signal DB, and this is this one. Just after name, I am going to put icon and the Wi-Fi icon. And again, we're going to have to rebuild it. So let's go and rebuild it. And has it loaded? Yes, there we are. You can find all of the icons in the material icons right here. I use the site quite often. For example, I want to indicate an access point. I will click here and in Home Assistant, and here it is. Access point and DI. And just for demonstration, let me go there, and here we have the access point, connected SSID, and yes, we can go icon, colon, and I am just going to put MDI access point, and let's do another one just for the sake of doing another one, and we're going to close this, and I am going to look for IP, and IP network. You can use any of these. I like this one, the IP network one. I am going to put for the IP, I am going to put icon. And there it is. Now I'm going to stop there for now. This is more of a demonstration. My final version will have all of these things in. And I'm going to go and rebuild it now. For that, I need to go into ESPHome and I'm going to open it in a new tab. And again, I'm going to fast forward and see you when it's completed.
A few moments later.
And here we are. It is completed. I am then going to close this. We are going to go back and we're going to refresh. And you are going to see we've put an icon to this and an icon to this. And if we go to Home Assistant and refresh Home Assistant, you will also see that this icon appears here and this icon appears here. This is it for this tutorial's tips and tricks. I will see you in the wrap-up. So with our newly functioning device and newfound knowledge, we've significantly raised the bar in our abilities. We now know how to put together a device from a modular approach. In the next tutorial, we will demonstrate how to incorporate additional sensors along with sharing some more tips and tricks. Remember, the code is on my GitHub page. Link is in the description. I hope that you found this tutorial helpful and enjoyable. If you did, consider liking, subscribing, hitting the notification bell so that you never miss a future video. Thank you. This is Pascal signing off and see you in the next tutorial.